Board to order. Today is May 5th, 2015. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call?
Curtis Franco. Here. David Garrett. Pat Garrett. Eric Grenisoff. Here. Dennis Bear.
Here. I'd like to introduce our newest board member. He was sworn in at the last Planning Commission meeting. This is Eric Grenisoff. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
He replaces Georgiana, who recently resigned. And before I forget to mention it, we're probably going to need to vote for a vice chair at some point, maybe next time. Okay. Moving on to public comment. Do we have any comments from the public on anything that's not on the agenda? This is a time when you can ask questions or make comments or anything else? Nope. Nobody running up to the podium? Okay. Item 4 is the informal project review. At this point, any potential and or future project applicant may present their project to us for informal project review for the purpose of gaining information as preliminary feedback only. It's a free process, so we encourage folks to take advantage of that before they actually make the application. Might be able to give them some guidance beforehand. Any informal project reviews?
None.
None? Okay. We are on to item 5, the consent items. We have A, affidavit of posting agenda, and B, approved minutes for March 3rd, 2015 meeting. We can take them singly or as a whole.
Madam Chair, I move that if there's no other comments, I move the consent agenda be approved as listed.
Okay. Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we need a roll call?
Yep.
I ask that every time.
Board Member Franco.
Aye.
Board Member Garrett.
Aye.
Board Member Medeiros is absent. Board Member Grenisoff.
Aye.
And Chairman Guevara.
Aye.
All members of the board being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-001 with Board Member Medeiros absent.
Mm-hmm. All right, item 6, action items, announce selection of honoree for Preservation Month. So May is National Preservation Month, deemed so by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and for the last 3 years we have honored a business owner for restoring their business, protecting the building, preserving the building. The last 3, the first one was the Ponzini installation, and then Mission Clocks, and then Vertigo. And this year, we're going to recommend to the Planning Commission La Calavera building, which is on Washington Street. It was in the newspaper this month, the most recent issue. I don't know if you can see it, but it's on Washington. It's part of the Hardeen's restaurant, and they've just used a 4-color palette to really highlight the architectural details, and they re-roofed it, and it really vitalizes the downtown. There had been a fire directly across the street, and I think it just brings new life to the area. And the owners are showing good stewardship of the property and setting a good example for others. So, do we need to, I guess we'll make a recommendation to the Planning Commission.
I'll move that the board recommend to the Planning Commission that it pass a resolution honoring the owners of the property for the work that they did toward improving the downtown and bringing the feeling of the community together.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Board Member Franco.
Aye.
Board Member Garrett.
Aye.
Board Member Medeiros is absent. Board Member Grenisoff.
Aye.
Chairman Guevara.
Aye.
All members of the board being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-001 with Board Member Medeiros absent.
Okay, good. And item B, consider request to revise the brewery project design review approval. Staff report?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, and members of the Historical Commission, the applicant, Hippolito Cerda, who is reconstructing and developing the brewery building, has asked for considerations to construct a structure in between the brewery building and the J&J Burgers for the purpose of providing a shaded cover in that patio area between the two. The building is approximately 24 by 39. It's erected on 4 posts, and in the diagram that I presented to you, it shows a somewhat 6 by 6 post. I think there's 12 of them altogether that would hold the things up, would be open on the sides, and then kind of some type of a shaded roof cover on top that would provide shade for the users of the patio.
You have no drawings showing it at all?
The drawing that he
There's
had,
not in my packet.
yeah, and there was, that was
It
the
just
one.
shows the 4 posts.
Yeah, right. And then this was the site plan that he submitted. I have here hanging there where the brewery building is here, the J&J Burgers are here, and then this is the building that he has there. It'll have a ridge line following parallel of the Alameda, and then there'll be 4 posts over here, 4 in the back, and then 1 in each end. And it would be a hip-shaped roof.
I'd like to see a drawing of it, something, you know, before we get...
Is anyone here representing Mr. Cerdas?
No, I don't see anybody in the audience.
I think something this significant, the applicant ought to be here.
We should have one of the building and that trellis that they're going to build where we can see what it really looks like.
Okay, I move that we continue the matter to the next regular meeting to allow the applicant to appear.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call?
Board Member Franco?
Aye.
Board Member Garrett?
Aye.
Board Member Meneres is absent. Board Member Grossoff?
Aye.
Chairman Bear?
Aye.
All members of the board being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes 4001 with Board Member Meneres absent.
Okay.
Now, the issue there is, several meetings ago, the HRB and the Plan Commission chose a color, and they're primed the building, and they want to get caulked and ready for painting. And I wanted to bring it to your attention so that you can kind of refresh your memories of where the color palette of the things here. This was the, you can pass it around, this was the voting decision that the commission performed at the last time. You see on the palette, it looked like item G was the first, and it goes B and then an I.
Right now, the primer's on it, right? They just did it today.
That's just a primer, that's right. Yeah.
I thought I recalled that they would paint something on a board and bring it into us so that we could look at it. Have they-
Right yet?
And have they finished the landscaping? Because that was another,
No, they have not.
I thought they were
We
gonna
sent
wait.
that- We sent that back to their designer to have them with our comments about the trees and stuff like that. We haven't done that.
so this is the color palette that we chose, but we didn't really indicate what would be the body, what would be the trim.
Right.
I guess I should invite you commissioners to speak before I say what I want to say. So, commissioners, what are your comments?
Before it was red and white, right?
Yeah, I was here yesterday and I was getting into my car and I looked to my left and I saw the back of the Ponzini building. I thought, that's it. That's the color that we really need to go with.
Right.
And then as I was driving tonight, I noticed Mr. B's old
Barn.
warehouse, and that's that same color, a little more barn red. But I called the Ponzinis, and the color they use, they bought their paint from Hollister Paint, and the red is called Cottage Red. They used, it says white. I kind of don't like a dead white. I like more of a Swiss coffee.
It's going to make a little difference too because they got artificial wood down there and this is real redwood here, so you're going to have to watch the color.
Here they have real,
That's regular redwood.
okay. So
They paint it over.
will, absorb
And that's
it?
down there, the reefers, that's what it is.
So will that be darker or lighter, or?
It'd probably be a little bit lighter.
The primer keeps from getting absorbed.
So my feeling is that I want the body to be dark, like it was, and I liked this. It kind of is more of a winey color, but what are your thoughts?
I support you.
So if this is still our choice, is it? I think this helped us narrow down what it is that we wanted.
That's what we chose last time, right?
Yeah, but now that we know what Ponzini's is, do you like that color?
I haven't reviewed Ponzini, so I'm familiar. The picture that I've shown earlier, I mean, that mimics it in a lot of ways.
Ponzini's has cottage red for the body, it has white for the trim, and it has a cadet red, blue. It's deep royal blue for the trim, maybe the door.
Doors, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we,
Well, can we have him paint two different reds on just a few boards down there so we could look at both of them? It wouldn't take that much, all you do is get the samples and paint them on there, and have one of the board members go down there, look at it or whatever, let her.
okay.
Okay.
So I think Hollister Paint carries Benjamin Moore, Kelly Moore, and Dunn Edwards. So if we could get a cottage red that looks like that. Richard Ponce, what do you think?
The body is the darker
Yeah.
brick, and then the lighter would be the trim
Yeah,
around the windows, and then that would be the door.
yeah.
Yeah, I was at the meetings where we had long discussions on the colors. And I think at that meeting, it was unanimously that one. And there was another one, sort of a beige, I think it was IH that
Here's
was
H.
considered.
And here's I has more greenish tones.
Yeah, the one on the left, I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of discussion on that too.
Yeah,
I think that the colors that you guys had picked initially, I think to keep things rolling.
Okay.
The guy's on the roll right now. He's really
ready to go.
progressing, and I don't think we should slow him down anymore. I think we agreed that color was a good color. I think we should just go forward instead of holding him up anymore, because we had trouble getting him going, and he seems to be going pretty good now.
What do you think about a sample? They're painting us, you know.
Is he prepared to paint soon, or?
I wouldn't surprise if they do a sample of these, and then if it's too light, then they could darken it up a little bit. We don't want them to paint the whole thing and say, hey, nobody likes it, just because
Yeah,
it's
Okay.
different when you get around the building.
yeah.
I spoke to them, and they would, they're willing to paint the building, because they got the crew there, and then if we could tomorrow go and take a look at it, I can tell them in the morning, and by the afternoon, they'll have a swap painted, maybe on the backside with the door or trim.
Yeah, could
Yeah,
you,
it doesn't take that
Give
long.
your
could you
mic.
guys ask that, and for a couple of days, we'll check it out, and
Yeah.
then go forward with it? I think it's best to keep them.
I don't want to be the only one.
Well, they're set to paint this week?
They're painting.
Oh, yeah, they're painting
Well, I know
now,
they-
and they'd like to be able to, apply it tomorrow so they could make a decision and finish the whole thing up.
Yeah, because the community's really excited and upset. They think that's the
I
color
know.
that's going to stay. They really want that. So let's make everybody happy. I think I liked that color initially. I still do, so.
Thank you.
It's up to you
Sorry to
guys.
put you on the spot,
Thank
too.
you.
Is there anybody from the audience who'd like to comment on this? Are there any speaker cards, Trish?
No.
Okay, hearing nobody wanting to speak, then I'll close the public comment time and bring it back to us. Our final decision then is that we'll continue to go with this,
Yeah, sure.
using the darkest color for the body.
And I'll take this to the
Okay.
painters in the morning.
Okay,
Sounds good.
okay. Do we need to make a motion?
It's already been approved.
That was just
Okay,
a
we're just fine.
consensus
Okay.
type thing.
All right, then, we are almost done. Moving on to comments from Historic Resources Board. Commissioner Garrett?
No comments.
Commissioner Gredisov?
No comment.
Okay.
No comment.
I just have one. I emailed it to you, board members. There's a Office of Historic Preservation workshop in Placerville on June 4th. It's from 9 to 4. It's free. I know I prefer the online ones because it's so much easier. I asked my husband if he could go fishing up there. Well, I go to this. I don't know if there's any fishing right there, but anyway.
water?
I don't know. That's another thing. Is there water? But check your email. I did forward you something about this. And it's still early. Since I'm on the Historic Resources Board, I think it's okay for me to promote this Salinas Valley Gives donation program that's ongoing today. Those of you who are at home, you can use your computer. Vertigo's, I think, and Hardina's have stations where interested donors can donate to any of the non-charitable organizations within the San Bernardino County. I'm only going to plug one because I only think it's appropriate. The historic Adobe, the Native Daughters Adobe, is one of the organizations that's eligible for donation because the Adobe needs restoration right now. So if you're interested in doing that, you can, if you're online, you can go to the San Juan Bautista Historical Society webpage, and from there is a link to the Silicon Valley Gives. And as I said, there's so many wonderful organizations, but I think it's only appropriate, since we're talking about historic resources here, that I promote the Adobe.
You have somebody here, we can go just an hour later.
Oh, and, okay, the other thing, thank you.
It's historical.
This past weekend, May 2nd, the National Heritage Rose Group convened here in San Juan. They could have chosen to go anywhere, but they chose to come here because we have such an array of historic roses at the cemetery and within the city. They started on Friday. They had a presentation at the VFW by, well, Jill Perry is the curator of the Heritage Rose Garden in San Jose. She's expert in the field. She comes here periodically, takes people on tours of the roses. They came into town. They went to Casa de Anza, where Georgiana was able to greet them and show them the roses there. And then they went to Georgiana's house, which is just up the street. She has an interesting heritage rose that Jill Perry said she'd not seen south of San Jose, I guess, or she'd not seen this far south. I think they were going to tour the roses at the state park. They went to Mary Sellen's house because she has a lot of old roses as well. And Georgiana, what else? What am I missing? Georgiana was able to go.
The cemetery.
Of course, the cemetery. Yeah.
And the best part about it was the VFW donated the space for the whole lecture
that's
and all
nice.
the entire morning.
That's wonderful.
So they were very pleased, and they let the Heritage Rose Society has left a rose to be planted at the VFW.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, nice.
Wonderful.
It was a wonderful day, and I can look forward to doing some more with them. And they're encouraging anybody who's interested to meet some of us and figure out how we can get them back.
I know one thing Jill mentioned was someone suggested that we adopt a rose bush because of water. Water is such a big issue. We haven't been able to start the reclaimed water usage. But if you're on walk, just take water and dump it on one of the thirsty roses.
Or any of the roses.
Any of the roses, any of the plants. Thank you, Georgiana. Thank you for being there for them. I'm so happy that the VFW donated their space because that organization doesn't have a lot of money, and it was just a good opportunity for San Juan to be a host, to be hospitable and show what we have. So I'm grateful that it went so well. Thank you for asking.
Was any at the mission?
Did they go to the mission? I don't know if they did.
They went around.
There's one.
They spent the whole day. They spent the whole day.
But I thought the mission being 200 years, it might have some real old ones.
They looked at everything they could.
Yeah.
Anything
They were
exciting?
disappointed that I was the only one from San Juan.
Oh,
I would have been there, but my son was getting married, so
I
I
know.
had no choice, actually. But there is one rose at the corner. If you follow the wall all the way to the corner, there's one single rose that survives there. It doesn't get water, doesn't get care, but it was Mary Sellen who pointed it out to me, so I pointed it out to Jill, and that was on the tour, I think, too. It's not one of the heritage roses, but still it's a special. I mean, if it can survive without any care, without water, it's pretty hardy. City planner, manager, any?
No?
Okay. All right, then. I am going to adjourn this meeting. And pass the gavel.
okay, let me get this we got here. 6:20. Okay. Okay, we're opening now the regular meeting of the San Juan Bautista Planning Commission. Today is May 5th, also known as Cinco de Mayo, 2015. And we'll call for a roll call.
Pat Garrett.
Aye.
Eric Redsoff.
Here.
Manny Guevara.
Here.
David Medeiros is absent. Chairman Franco.
Here. We have a quorum, we can conduct business. Okay, public comments. Anyone who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, now would be the time. Like if you want to tell us how good a job we're doing or not doing. Something you feel is happening in the city that we should be telling the mayor or the council about. This is the lowest level of government. You can make your complaints here, we kick them up, or you can go to the council. But a lot of times we can solve the problem or get action started. So, does anybody want to say anything? Mr. Ponce?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to do one of these, but I have it. Anyway,
We'll let it go this time. You're regular.
okay. I noticed that you're going to recommend to the Plan Commission of a property that has been upgraded or kept up. I think when we talked about it last year, we were also going to consider a non-commercial building, residence or something like that. And I'm wondering if that is still something.
We talked about that at the last meeting. Commissioner Medeiros, I think, was very interested in that.
Yes.
And I'd wait until he came back. I will let him know that you brought it up. But I was going to let him, like Commissioner Guevara, she carried the ball on the historical commercial.
Yes.
And so I was going to ask Commissioner Medeiros to carry it on any improvements on historical residential.
Yeah.
And so maybe next year we would have two
Yes, I think
awards,
that's
but they're both independent. You can't mix them both because
Right.
the whole point of the commercial one was to recognize the folks downtown. We need help down there, and if they're willing to stick their necks out, we got to support them. And that
Yes.
was just to get the word out and get exposure to these businesses who really stuck their necks out for
Yeah,
us.
I support and respect that concept. I think that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
but you're right.
But also the people surrounding our commercial businesses or downtown also support the town. So anyway,
Yeah.
a short story, I would like to recommend 46 Monterey Street for the residents. They've done a wonderful job restoring the old Sonnyson property. It's right across the street from the Miranda's house,
Oh,
under
okay.
that oak tree.
Is it on the court? Miranda's
Yeah.
court?
It's right
Oh,
under that big,
yes,
next to that big
yeah.
oak tree.
That's where the big,
They did a beautiful job on that.
Yeah,
that's where that big oak tree is?
Yes.
yeah, okay.
And they've restored it pretty much to what it used to be years ago. I used to own that, so they did a good job
Okay.
in matching what it used to be.
We will refer this to Commissioner Medeiros. and
Thank you.
I hope we'll take the assignment. But yes, we have talked about having two parallels rather than trying to mix them because they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they support each other.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else would like to comment on something that is lacking, we need in the city? There being no other comments, I'll close the public comment portion. Do we have any informal project reviews?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the project review is, if somebody comes in and brings a project, they can talk to us informally. I doubt we even do minutes on it. And if a guy says, I want a 22-story building out here, we can say, we won't laugh publicly, but take it back with you. But and that way the guy doesn't spend thousands of dollars on architects, engineers to come through with a project that he had no chance of getting through. So you get a lot of public feedback because the public is invited also to comment. And when you go back to your architects and engineers, say, look, forget these things, focus here, and do a good job. So that's what the whole program is. If there is no other comments, we'll just keep going. Okay, we have a consent agenda. We have the minutes of the meeting of March 3rd, and we have affidavit of posting of the agenda. Commissioner, do you have any comments on those?
Do I need to abstain from the minutes, even though I was present for?
Well, you weren't as a commissioner.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be. I wouldn't want to be challenged on it.
Correct.
Okay, the consent agenda can be approved with a single motion because they're all items that are basically just general stuff. And
I move that we approve both because I found nothing to correct.
I'll
same.
second that.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion,
Commissioner Guerra,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Maderas is absent, Commissioner Granasoff,
Aye.
Chairman Franco.
aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001 with Commissioner Maderas absent.
Thank you. Okay, now we have some action items. A, consider a conditional use permit for Hacienda de Leal, Section 1104030B of the Municipal Code. 1, the application withdrawal with the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. And 2, a continued discussion on the existing use permit and current changes to the property. Staff, can you post us on this?
Yeah, basically, we received a week ago the application of withdrawal for the ABC license. I wanted to bring that to your attention. And we have Mr. Leal, who's here this evening and everything, and he can speak to his conditional use permit that exists there for the 42-unit motel, and the restaurant was part of the original approval back in 1979 and 80. The motel was constructed shortly thereafter. I think it was completed in about 82 or 83, but the restaurant was never built. Subsequent to that, then there was a lot division where it broke off the 1.1 acre, which is currently the site for the fueling station, convenience center, and the remaining 2.9 acres or 2.78 acres is for the motel and a joint there. So Mr. Leal is in the office, and I'm certainly welcome for him to come in and approach the Planning Commission.
Okay. We'll hear from Mr. Leal. Would you like to speak, sir?
No comment.
Okay. Okay, where are we on this in terms of action here? Okay, so if we pulled the ABC alcoholic beverage control application, there will not be any alcoholic beverages sold in the premises. And yet all the events have alcoholic beverages.
And that, I would have to ask Mr. Leal or his manager respond to that. I think Mr. Leal is in the wine business, and I think he would probably be more apt to be able to have social events there where he could serve his wine, but not charge for it. I don't know if that was his intentions or not.
Could you speak to that, Mr. Leal? Because you do have alcoholic beverages. You've chosen not to get a license to serve it. How can you do this?
No comment.
Okay, no problem. No problem at all. Okay, I take that as an issue. Because I have no problem with if he was to get a restaurant going and he's going to serve wine and beer, alcoholic beverages, that's a normal thing. But if he's not going to have it and he's going to serve the stuff, there's got to be a way to do it. Okay, what's the status of the permits?
The conditional use permit is still in the air and waiting for Mr. Leal to move forward on the conditional use permit. We haven't heard, and I think it's been on the agenda for the last 2 or 3 meetings. Yeah.
Well, he said he
Okay.
wasn't going to apply.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you a question. The parcel that was split, the 1.2 acre parcel, is that the specific parcel on which the restaurant was to be?
Well, that's one of the problems. We've discovered 3 or 4 different site plans that were created back in the early 80s, and it was moved all the way around, and so it could have been any one that approved, but what got built is the one that exists right now, and I think it was one of the earlier plans. The restaurant we had discovered one drawing that had it out towards the 156, and then there was another one that was more linear and parallel with the Alameda.
So what was originally approved was for a larger parcel, but with no Well, the
Yeah.
hotel
The
must
ori-
have been cited.
The original use permit was discussed by the planning commission, and it was for the full 3.9 acre parcel.
In what year?
1979, the application was made, and I'm sure that they've discussed it 79, 80, and 81. I think it was built in 82. Yeah.
That when it was, the notes say that it was, that there was, when it got built, that there was presumably a permit of some sort pulled for the motel itself. Is there any record that when that was approved, that the restaurant was still a portion of that, or is that is the question that's...
We have not found any evidence in any of the building documents that a restaurant was applied for. No. The motel was.
And but we don't have that permit to say yea or nay for it?
No, no.
When, who would keep track of the conditional use permit? Is that on the owner? Is that on the city, the county, the...
Theoretically, it would be with the city, and we would have that, and it would be represented in the minutes. Unfortunately, over the years, there's been pages taken out of the minute book, and we haven't been able to fully document a linear sequence of minutes. So we can always assume is that the motel received the building permit and it was built, and there was inspections made.
Does a conditional permit last indefinitely?
Well, a use permit goes with the land.
Okay, but the land has changed.
Yes.
See, my position is that the permit was issued for a restaurant and a motel, and I have no problem with that. It was issued on 3.9 acres. No problem with that. But as soon as you cut off the chunk of the property, almost a quarter of it, then you have what's called intensification of land use. More is happening on a smaller piece of land. And that triggers other things. So this would require a full environmental review, and whatever comes up with it, it's not to say you can't do your motel and your restaurant, but it's to say that if you put that restaurant in, because of the changing conditions, it's going to, like I said, it's triggering a whole new set of laws. So that's where we're going to be until we just come up with some more definitive stuff from our attorney and staff review.
Yeah.
But again, there should not be any events on the property until that is resolved. I mean, giving a permit every week for something is just bypassing the law. Because if you're going to have public assembly events all the time, then it should be taken care of with use permit or the appropriate long-term legal tools there. So, we have a public comment. Mr. Ponce.
Thank you, Mr. Frankel. You took the words out of my mouth. It's a new project. The property has changed in size and also in configuration. So I think that it has to start from scratch again. It is not what it was when the permits were permitted, regardless of what location was picked at that time. Everything has changed, so you have to start all over again, in my opinion. Thank you.
I think from the Environmental Quality Act, the question there is it a project, what he wants to do, and then you would make the decision that, yes, if it is a project, then it would fall under the CEQA guidelines, and it would have to follow the regulations. So it's the determination in the CEQA guidelines is this a project?
Are you ready to work on that tonight, or is that something you should bring us? You want to bring a staff report with outlining a project is
What is
defined
project?
as,
Yes. Yeah.
and then the commission can hear
Yeah.
public comments and then make a determination at that time.
Yes.
But again, there shouldn't be any events contrary to this until this is resolved. Okay, Is there any other public comments on this? Okay. Sometimes commissioners have to make hard decisions. So then we should continue this until the next meeting. Staff, you can have all that stuff for us at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. We'll make a determination at that time whether this is a project, and this way we can advise the applicant as to what is needed for him to proceed. Okay. We don't need a motion on that, do we? It's just a continuation of the meeting.
Well, we provided direction to staff, so.
We did. Okay, that being the first item. Next one, review of Chapter 11-02 of the Zoning Code, the matrix for permitted and conditional uses by zoning district.
Oh, yes,
this
Mr.
is
Chair,
very interesting.
when Matt and I were going through there, we looked at the matrix of the zoning things, and we found that there was a lot of uses and new types of businesses that were not reflected in our uses of both commercial as well as residential. And what we did was we prepared a copy of the matrix. This is not the one we added those new uses, and we colored them in blue and red for your considerations, and like an auction house, an automatic telling machine, automobile storage yard, boat sales, stuff like that, fortune telling, fuel and ice dealers, it went on and on. Commercial filming, contractors' yards, dancing and gymnastics, and music studios. None of these were reflected in our descriptions of allowable, permitted, or conditional use of the matrix. And we felt that now would be the time to go through this exercise, identify all these new, and then we might even have lost some of them, and some new items would come in where you identify some new uses that would be permitted in both the mixed use and the commercial, as well as multiple and residential. And we'll put it down in the matrix from R1, 2, 3, commercial, mixed use, industrial, agriculture, and the various uses there. And then we can go through that matrix and then find out what's permitted and what's a conditional use permit and what is allowed. And then there's a terminology in planning where they say it's permitted uses and uses permitted.
Okay, the only way to do this, unless somebody has a better idea, you're going to have to go through each one of these and just think in your mind, like accessory buildings. Should they be allowed in residential districts? Most of us have detached garages or something like that. Should it take a conditional use permit? Probably not. Should it even come to the Planning Commission at all? More likely not. But on each one of these things, we got about 6 pages.
Didn't we talk about having a workshop?
Yeah, I was just going to get to that. But I think to do this, you're going to have to be prepared, like I said, to think deep, because some of these have never been done before. I'm surprised they're not included in our ordinances, but they have to be dealt with, because at some point somebody's going to come by and ask for something. You want it, but it's not there. You're going to have to say, one moment, well, we spend 3 months amending an ordinance to allow a use. And I got hit with one of those at the time when you had, radio and TV repair service. Guy comes in, I want to have, he wanted something to do with integrated circuits. Well, the ordinance is so clear. It did not allow integrated circuits, and yet that was the state raising the age. And so we had to look at that and say, wait a minute, what is this? It goes in radios and TVs, fine, radio and TV repair. But you have to be prepared to know what the word is and what does it mean, so that everybody's on the same wavelength. Like I say, assembly use.
And there's a lot of stuff growing up in the metropolitan area with sports bars, but then they have different names for different types of sport bars where you go in, and some of them are the eating places and sports, and some of them are nightclubs and sports. And so you've got to really start to think about the technology and the society that changes, how we would address some of those uses.
So
Now, as you recall, we did this exercise on the residential when we had that boarding house application up at the Nyland House. And we recognize that there's permitted and conditional uses, but in our local ordinance here, we have what they call the site and design review, and that is a S designation. And when we completed the residential, you'll see that there's a lot of permitted but site where you feel there's, even though it is permitted, that you want to have a site review because there might be parking requirements that you look at, drainage requirements, grading and stuff like that. And so those are the site review parameters and criteria that you'll use in that. And that should be applied also on the commercial and industrial segments of it.
See, we're looking for the generic term. You know?
There's some redundancy, though, here.
Yes,
I
there
see
is.
hostel, I see bed and breakfast inns, I see inn, and then in place of posada, it's been changed to bed and breakfast. So we'll want to just have one, right?
Is an inn a hotel? It's a lodging place.
We don't-
Yeah, and those are the things that we have to sort out.
Yeah.
The word lodging place would pick up, you can say lodging place including such and such, and similar
Motels,
uses.
motels, yeah, okay.
And that would give you a chance to not to hold somebody up. You got medical clinics here, you got laboratories. Well, medical, dental offices, labs, and clinics would tie up the whole thing. Now where you're not worried about, you know, what's happening. Is just, hey, is it a medical laboratory? Is it a medical office, a medical clinic, or dental clinic? So yeah, but that's what it's going to take. Now, grocery stores and delis. The deli is almost like a restaurant where you're going to get something to eat. It may be ancillary to a grocery store, but a deli, Eric's Deli, means freestanding place.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be more of a restaurant, including such and such.
There was a use that cropped up over in Los Gatos where the culture has changed in the Indian. They go into the thing and there's a smoking pot there and they have a bunch of tubes and people sit around and smoke this thing, and it's not narcotics and everything. They puff on it and then they converse and then they'll serve tea and stuff
like a
like that,
hookah.
and it's
Hookah,
yeah, right.
And I understand hookahs just didn't have tobacco in them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Depends on how good they're feeling when they leave.
Yeah.
So what do we want to do here? We can talk a little bit more generals, get some feedback from the public, but there's no way we're going to do this unless we're planning on being here till midnight tonight. And I just,
So I would recommend that. I'd recommend that each of you go through and mark the thing up, and then we schedule a workshop, and then we'll go through it
Okay.
and take them one step at a time.
Do we want to narrow down? I know Eric works full-time, so do we want to do
I
it?
can take time off as needed.
Yeah?
Not an issue.
Okay. Well, let's commit yourself to doing it for the next month, going over this thing. And then we'll start a meeting at the next meeting. We'll start a
Okay.
workshop.
Should we also be looking at additions that we don't see? in
Anything
here?
that's missing, you're right. That's the whole point of this thing. This thing was, I'm surprised that there's so many uses that weren't there that have been in everybody else's zoning ordinances.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't think we don't have one, we may never get one. Don't say never. Be ready for it, because I'd rather be proactive than have to say, wait a minute, we have to go to, remember, it's 90 days for an ordinance to be adopted.
Right.
So why hold anybody up if we can put some generic stuff here? Now, this historic sites, for instance. I want East Smith for a historic site.
Which?
Oh, it's on the last page. First one under
Okay,
government
yeah, yeah.
offices.
Yeah. And what was your question?
I want East Smith for a historic site. I'll bring my own building in, or? See, that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
See, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. Doesn't belong there, or it's missing. or it's not worded properly, or it's said 2 or 3 times here.
And they're all Cs, all the streets are right across, yeah.
Right.
Is there a difference between the blues and the reds?
Some of the reds is the ones that we've added, you know, that are specific, you know, blues, you know.
And the underlined ones are those, oh, I guess everything that's in color is
They're
underlined.
blue.
Got it.
So, I'll take a motion for action on this thing to continue it to the next meeting to allow for study and setting of a workshop date.
I'll move that we continue this to the next meeting and set up a workshop for study.
Call for
I'll
roll call
second.
vote.
Who was the second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Dudare?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Maderas is absent. Commissioner Gretasaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001 with Commissioner Maderas absent.
You know, I guess I made a mistake. I didn't allow the public to comment on this. If anybody wants to make comments, or like us, study this thing and join us at the next meeting and the study and the workshop and help us make something that works, because a lot of this stuff is commercial, and you know, we need a lot of help downtown. We need a place where people can know that something is allowed, they can come in, they're not going to be held up, or it's clearly not there and we don't want it, and save them a lot of time and money. So the key thing is to have an ordinance that is ready for anybody who comes in to get a quick answer. A quick denial saves them money, and a quick approval is good for us and saves them money also. Okay. We'll take that. Next item. Consider minimum lot size for residential districts. We're considering resolution recommending zoning text amendment to the R1 district, and consider amending the zoning map for the R1 district. Staff.
Yeah. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, and this goes back to a discussion we've had in the last couple meetings where the parochial aspects of developing a minimum lot size dates back into when zoning ordinance was developed, you know, and it's been carrying with it. And some jurisdictions have 7,000 square foot, some jurisdictions have 6,000. You know, they vary and stuff like that, but it's the postage stamp approach to say each lot will there and everything. We like to consider in the current thing with our inclusionary housing and the variety of needs and stuff like that, and affordability, is to look at R1 as a development process where you can have 7,000 square foot lots, you can have 6,000 square foot lots, you can have 5, and then you can have 4,500. And we did a survey of a lot of the older parts of San Juan, as well as the older parts in Hollister and everything, and there are a lot of smaller lots, and then there's a lot of bigger lots, and then you go into the new subdivisions, and they're all cookie cuttered, all the same size and everything. I was trying to look at the aspect that when you design a subdivision or you're doing any type of development, you want diversity. You want the variables to where not all of the homes look the same setbacks, same widths, you know, same driveways and stuff like that, and give it that flexibility where you can say, hey, you could have 4 or 5 larger lots and then a smaller lot, 4 or 5. Then the design can fit into that area, and it gives you that design diversity as well as affordability, because a smaller home is going to sell for less than a larger home. If somebody's going to build a 27 or 28 square foot house, the construction cost, we know of what housing cost is going to go. It's going to go for $150, $160 a square foot, and in a bigger lot, it's going to cost more to develop, more frontage in the front, you know, more land and stuff like that. That house is going to sell. If you have a 5,000 square foot lot, that house is going to be something, maybe an 1,800 square foot house. It's going to sell for less land, less improvements and stuff. So there's implied that that design diversity gives you more affordability as well as achieving a good housing mix in your community. And I think that that's what we really should be striving for, is to have the opportunity for a good housing mix and a variety of housing needs, stuff like that. I've done the analysis, and I think at the last meeting I had little drawings of a typical 7,000 square foot lot, a 6,000 and a 5,000, and with the setbacks and the frontage and everything, and you can see just by a smaller lot that the house size, the maximum lot coverage can be more than 40% of the lot. Well, then it entails is that house is going to be smaller. And then the maximum site coverage of all of the house can be more than 50%. So those things, and on the second page of my staff report, I gave you an example of all the years that I've been around design, and I says, the first line that I gave you there was 9 70-foot wide lots. Boom, on a typical block, and that's 630 feet. Then I took the second line and I says, hey, you got a 70, a 60, a 70, a 65, a 70, a 70, a 50, 65, a 60, 630 feet, and you got more lots, but different design varieties, okay? Different styles. The third line there is we've got 632 feet, and you got a 70, 60, a 70, 56, 70, a 50, 65, 56, 65, and a 70. The same block, you're going to get a different design diversity. But they're almost identical in terms of smaller width, larger width, bigger house, smaller house. Sometimes you can go into a subdivision and you don't even know the difference that that's a smaller house to a bigger house, because they can architecturally design it to where it almost matches what the adjacent properties are. But I'm a firm believer is that when you go into a subdivision, you don't want all the houses to look the same. You want them to give the people the choices of a little design diversity and stuff like that. So I would encourage you to take a look and say, R1, single family, there is a need to have a variety of lot sizes in that category. And it shouldn't be just flat, and they all have to be 7,000 square foot or 8,000 or whatever the
So the
Hard to
lots
say.
at the end of 4th Street where we split, they were what, 4,800 square feet?
4960s,
Yeah.
two 4960s.
So if we have small lots like that, are we going to keep them as single-story houses and not let them build big 2-story houses in them?
And that's on the third page of the thing. I gave
I've
you
seen that, yeah.
a matrix of stuff like that where I says, hey, a larger lot, you can have 6-foot side yard setbacks, 20 for the house, 25 for the garage, 20 in the back. And then you can also put it there that just says, if you get down to a smaller lot, should you make that 2-story or should you make it single-story? Big lot, should you make it 2-story? Those are the decisions that you have to make in terms of establishing the restrictions and criteria.
Because there were nice little houses down there. That built.
Yeah. See, when you get into something like this, you got, you want these houses okay, first of all, to make it happen, you're going to have to create new zoning districts.
Right.
And you would have, say, an R15, 5,000 foot, would have certain height limits and certain setbacks. R17 would have certain height limits and certain setbacks. They could be different because it's a different zoning district, and all houses similarly situated would be affected by it. I wouldn't go below 5,000 right now, but I like the idea of the variety,
Right.
diversity in a subdivision. In fact, in my own experience, we had major developments along Salinas Highway, and the front yard setbacks varied. So when you look down, like Roger said, you don't see one wall like a prison. You see these ins and outs. And so that was just the setbacks.
'Cause I don't want to see what's happening in Gilroy. They got the new subdivisions going there by the old Ford Motor dealership. These houses are huge. There's no backyard anymore, and there's 16 windows looking in your window right at the
So what parcels of land would this refer to?
throughout the town, right?
But
Well,
how many
all
vacant
R1,
parcels are
yeah.
there?
Now, I did, when I was preparing the report, I went and took the assessor things, and I looked at every lot in town and everything, and there's 43 lots that are in the 8 to 10,000 square foot
So
range.
are we talking recarving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those could qualify to where you could say, hey, you got a big lot, let's split it and make 2 smaller ones and achieve the diversity and the dynamics.
So we'd be creating flag lots?
Well, flag lots are allowable in the thing. We kind of discourage them, but, that's a decision that the
I see it
commission.
more for new development. Because a new developer can start from scratch and say, look, this I want to lay it out, because I'm going to do my diversity. As opposed to an established neighborhood that will probably fight.
And every lot division there, we have the standard policy where we have to send out notices 300 feet around, and in all the neighborhood has the notices and the opportunity to speak to it. And there are a lot of larger lots. I know a few of the people on Church Street have come up there that border the D'Ambrosio, and those are big, long lots and stuff. And that would be more applicable to where they could develop an additional living quarters back there in smaller lots. But again, it's complex, and it requires a lot of investigation. And then there's other lots that could, like the one on Monterey Street, where it just happened to split into 2 pieces, and it worked out good, and there were smaller units there. So it worked out good. And
Why do we
those-
have to rezone? Why can't we take them on individual basis?
Yeah,
Because
but-
your lots
and that would
are
be,
7,000
and that was what I was saying is to develop the R1 zone and just say, of the R1 zone, you have 4 options to take a look at, and each option would be individual.
Right now, it's just one option, right?
So one option.
7,000 square feet.
So, yeah.
So
Or
how,
bigger.
Now,
how did Monterey Road, I mean, maybe I'm being naive, how did Monterey Road get
That
allowed
was-
to go to?
that was a zoning of an R2, and they
Oh,
could have
okay.
put a duplex in there. So when we split it as a PD, and then we changed the thing back to an R1.
For instance, like somebody has a
No.
10,000 foot lot, and they want to come in and split, we got to go through the same channels we did on the one in the 4th Street.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that there's not another house built behind and the fire department can't get to it and all this. We have to go through all that.
Yeah.
And parking.
Yeah.
Now, Willow Glen had a problem about 5 years ago, maybe when I was still in business, and there was a lot of people buying older lots, and they were building monster homes, and finally they had to put a stop to it. I mean, they would just went wall to wall, big 2-story things, and it was getting out of hand and everything, and so they changed their zoning to accommodate that. So you don't want to encourage monster homes on smaller lots. You want, and that's why I was showing you that chart that I developed there. Each one will have a category, and there'll be setbacks, front and side yards, as well as height restrictions. That'll give you the parameters to stay on top of that.
I see that one off of Union Road there. They're building low-profile houses, and then they're building 2-story houses. So they're
Yeah.
breaking it up. It's not going
Yeah.
to be all big 2-story homes.
Yeah, and we have Kathy's in the audience, and they're
Yeah.
developers, and they understand that giving potential buyers choices is part of the marketing aspect, and so not everybody wants a 2-story.
Right.
The young yuppies like it, but older people don't, see? So you have to have that choice where you're meeting the market. And I think that having the variable lot sizes is the other option of giving them the choice, as well as the price. And most developers look at where they're going to build the homes and where they're going to hit the best market. And the best market is to try to get those people in there where they can afford it and amortize their lots and move in and then live, take care of it.
What I would like is, this is a big issue, and it has to do with real estate. I'd like some feedback from our local realtors. Say, hey guys, here's what we're coming up with. You know, tell us what's out there in the markets, and get some feedback.
Yeah, we have a few of them in the audience now, but yeah, I agree. You have to have their input, yeah.
Let's see if we have anybody. Is there anybody in the real estate business that would like to comment on this, or anybody would like to comment? This is a public discussion item. It's okay. What I want to do is continue this.
Al's never lost for words.
No, I mean, not in this case. But
Hi, my name's Al Vyas. I built the house over on 14 North Street. And that's almost a perfect example of what Roger's talking about. That lot's almost 8,000 feet, and go look in the backyard. I mean, you can't, people just don't use all that space. And quite frankly, it really limits your market. I had to put a bigger house on that lot to move it, because you got this big old lot, forces you to put a bigger house to try to get a bigger dollar amount. You know, fortunately it's sold, but obviously it's going to be, you have a bigger pool of buyers if you can provide some affordable housing, which right now, I mean, you got to have something with basically a 4 in front of it that kind of widens everybody, you know, widens out to that to that caliber of buyer. You start putting a 5 or 6 in front of things, I mean, it's just, you know, and again, in my opinion, it's a waste of space. People just, they don't take care of their yards. They don't have time to take care of their yards. They're spending all their time making money to make that big house payment, so that's my 2 cents.
Is 14 North Street the newest, one of the newest construction in town? It's got the tile roof and it's...
Yes.
Okay.
Had the 2
Thank
big
you,
oak
sir.
trees in front, yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I was looking for.
Yeah.
Like I said, as an individual, I don't want to vote on something that hasn't been vetted through the community, the people who are going to be affected by it. And people like yourself, realtors, are going to be affected by this. I don't know, you know, for better or for worse, but I need to know what the effect of an ordinance like this would be.
I'm a builder
Okay.
and a developer, so
But still, you're on the field and know what's happening out there.
yes.
Okay, I think we'll do it. I'd like to call for motion to, is there any other anybody who would like to speak on this? Okay, I'll call for a motion to continue this and ask staff to, maybe through the San Juan Committee, to reach a bunch of realtors and ask them if they would provide us some input, or feedback rather, on this proposal. And now we've said publicly what we think about it. What does the other side think about it? And if we can get on the same boat, we might have a stronger ordinance yet.
I got one, because I was just going along with Al. I got 2 lots in San Juan, they're 7,000 square feet. And one of the lots got a house on it, it's 1,500 square feet, and there's, from the back of the house to the back fence is almost 67 feet with nothing on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out
I
there.
got 2 of those lots in town.
Undeveloped?
It's just, well, it's got a house on it, but all behind it,
Oh,
it's just way too,
yeah.
way too.
Yeah, well, that's so typical of San Juan.
Right.
I mean,
See-
you look at some of the businesses on 3rd Street to the
Right.
back of 4th Street, it's all one single long lot.
Yeah, see, something like this, you know, we do have the provision for the granny unit or the accessible, whatever you call it. And that could be done now, but you can't sell it off.
Right.
But to be able to sell it off, that's a whole new ballgame. Okay, I'm entertaining that motion. Anybody want to move on?
So, go ahead. My direction is to get the parameters and solicit input from the realtors and come back and then have a system matrix where we can decide the direction, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we continue this to the next meeting and have some input from realtors at that
I'll
time.
second that.
Call for the vote?
Yes, Councilmember Yubert,
Aye.
Councilmember Garrett,
Aye.
Councilmember Maderas is absent, Councilmember Gredzasov,
Aye.
Chairman Franco.
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001 with the Commissioner Maderas absent.
Okay. Thank you. Now, we have another item here. Consider a request for revision to site and design approval, the brewery, and the applicant is Hipólito Cerda. Is he here?
No.
Okay. That being the Historic Resources Board continued it, I would like to a motion to continue this to allow feedback from the Historic Resources Board.
I move that we continue this item until the
Next regular
next
meeting.
next regular meeting.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Call for vote?
Yes.
Since this was a,
Commissioner Yubert,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Maderas is absent, Commissioner Gredzasov,
Aye.
Chairman Franco.
aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001 with Commissioner Madeira's absent.
Now we've got a good one. You heard that during the Historic Resources Board, that the Planning Commission and the board have a program to recognize folks who do something positive for the community in terms of restoring older buildings, doing something to those buildings to make them look better downtown, make it more attractive, and draw people into it. And we've got the mission, but we want that town to be able to stand by itself and say, look, I want to go see San Juan because they have this, 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 and that. So 3 years ago, we started this program. And what I did was I asked Commissioner Guibert to be part of a committee to nominate a business, and this right now, this is the commercial section, that has done something in the year that would merit recognition for Historic Preservation Month. Would you like to comment on this?
Well, I did in the Historic Resources Board.
Oh, okay, that means it's me. So, the committee selected the Angelina Alicia Santana Trust for their work on the Calavera Theater building. And they're the ones who, they did something, they stuck their necks out and made the place look a little bit better than it was yesterday. And that we want to recognize. So, is there anybody from the trust here?
I invited her to come to the city council meeting when it'll be presented.
Okay. Then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to read this resolution. What we're going to do is we'll work on the resolution and then ask the council to make the presentation at a council meeting. I've suggested this, and with the commission's support, is that they'll get more coverage. I want the world to know that we got folks out here sticking their necks out. It's not our money. It's theirs. And they're betting on the fact that if everybody gets together and makes this place better, better things are going to happen. So, this is what we did. I'm going to read the resolution and then we'll vote on it. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista recognizing the Angelina Alicia Santana Trust during National Preservation Month and recommend to the City Council. Whereas the month of May is National Preservation Month, and historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth, sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas the City of San Juan Bautista supports the Secretary of the Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties, quote, intended to promote responsible preservation practices that help protect our nation's irreplaceable cultural resources, end quote. And whereas the function of the Planning Commission is to guide the orderly development of the city in accordance with the general plan and other policy documents. And whereas the Planning Commission wishes to recognize a business owner whose project reflects the city's goals to maintain its historical ambiance by preserving and rehabilitating the structure at 36 Washington Street. Using a lively and well-coordinated palette of 4 colors to accentuate the architectural features of the western false front facade. B. Extending the economic life of the building by replacing the roof. C. Revitalizing and energizing part of a downtown block that sustained a fire in 2013. D. Modeling responsible stewardship of an historic building. Now therefore be resolved at this meeting on May 5, 2015, the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista, on behalf of its citizens, acted to recognize the efforts of the Angelina Alicia Santana Trust in renewing an existing resource at 36 Washington Street, part of the Jardines de San Juan restaurant property, and energizing the local economy, and thanks for being involved citizens. Passed and adopted by the Commission on May 5. Now, I will entertain, is there anybody who would like to make a comment about this before we have action on it? Mr. Ponce.
You might want to add in there that some of these, I'm sure they did, because I know they did, I was here at the meetings, that they all get the proper permits and follow our ordinance in their projects.
That would be automatic.
Not necessarily.
I guess I don't follow.
I think we've recently dealt with things done without permit, so we need to make sure that anything that is done is permitted, follows our policy. I think it's, I'm not saying that this one didn't, I'm sure they did, I was here when they did. But just make sure that everybody follows all our policies.
Okay, let's see. We could do the resolution subject to all permits having been secured for the work?
Yeah.
Okay, then that could be, whoever the maker of the motion that I'm going to ask for could say subject to. And that doesn't mess with the text, but that will direct staff to make sure everything's
So
done.
where would that be added?
It wouldn't be added to it. Staff would check to make, in other words, this wouldn't go to council until everything's done.
Oh,
So this gives them a couple of weeks working with city staff in case there's any issues.
Sounds reasonable.
okay.
Staff, does that sound reasonable to you? Okay. Okay, so again, I will entertain a motion to adopt subject to.
All right, I'll make the motion that we adopt Resolution 2015-21,
21.
21.
subject to.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Grassoff seconds it. Okay, call for the vote.
Commissioner Guevara,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros is absent, Commissioner Grassoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Franco.
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4001 with Commissioner Medeiros absent.
Okay, and following your review, staff, if you can arrange to have this put on the council agenda, and for the reasons we stated here. Okay. And again, as a message to the public, if you see or hear of any work that's being done that you feel really enhances the community, especially the commercial districts, let us know. Commissioner Guevara will be very involved with the historical portions, and let her know, let me know, or Commissioner, but we will get the message to her because a lot of work is being done and I want to see more done. So, thank you. Okay. What's the next item on the agenda here?
Discussion items.
D.
I got a PCD.
No, no.
That was D, that was E. Okay, now. 6, section 6 of the agenda, discussion items. Staff, general plan and EIR update.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the draft environmental impact report is in its final edition. It has been circulated. We've transmitted 15 copies to the state clearinghouse. It's a 558-page document. There's a copy is at City Hall here, and anybody can come and look at it. There's a copy at the public library, and we've sent electronic copies to the county planning department and school district. And so the environmental, it'll be circulated for, I believe, 45 days, and it'll come back with comments, and then we have a certain period to address those comments, and then we'll be holding a public hearing. And so it's a comprehensive document, covers the city through the period of 2035, the next 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any comments on that one? Questions? Okay.
I wanted to thank you for all of your
Oh, well,
comments on that.
I can make some comments at G, maybe about that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go for B. The Aisha property on Salinas Grade Road, update and status of compatible use determination. Staff.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think the commission asked me to put this on the agenda to find out the status of where that's at. It's a 62.7 acre parcel of land. It's owned by the Aisha Foundation. It's adjacent to the city and south of the current city limits. Property owner obtained a compatible use through the Board of Supervisors. That compatible use was issued upon certain conditions, and I'll read that. The owner shall fulfill all offers made in the application. The applicant shall not seek renewal or reinstatement of the agriculture preserved during or following the expiration of the non-renewal period currently in effect. The building shall be no larger than 12,100 square feet. The owner shall remove the deer fence, and the owner shall convey the full 62.7 acre conservation easement in favor of the San Benito Land Trust. The property is within our sphere of influence and is significant for the visual aspect of the ridge line, and it's highly visible from all parts of the city as well as State Highway 156. I know the city is very interested in the view shed that looks down upon our city, so any development of the property should be forwarded to the city for our input and comments. City has sent letters to the county planning department asking them to notify us upon any development stuff so that we can submit our comments and recommendations.
Have any public hearings been set or anything being done at all?
We have not heard of any application being filed.
Okay.
I'm on the distribution list for agendas for the County Planning Commission. I don't think I've seen anything about this come up
Okay.
yet.
But that's critical because once you mess up that ridge line, it's a new ballgame. They do a sloppy job. We're going to see it for the next 100 years. So yeah, whatever's going to be done, I'd prefer that it stayed in agriculture conservation. But whatever's being done, we'll make sure it's done right. Okay.
Do we hear from the public?
Oh, does the public want to speak on this item? Sir. Never let me get by without hearing the public.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Dan DeVries. I'm an attorney for Isha. I represented Isha before the Board of Supervisors in obtaining the compatible use determination, which was unanimous by the Board. Just quickly, in terms of your questions, or to answer your questions regarding applications and so forth, we're in the process of preparing a conditional use permit application to the county. I'll make a point of forwarding a copy to the city, to Trish, for distribution to you. Also, I can assure the Commission and the city that there are no plans, will never be any plans to build anything on a ridgeline or a hilltop or anything that would be visible on the city side of that hill. Anything that will be constructed would be, and when I say constructed, all we're talking about is a yoga space. And that will be on the side of the hill facing the old grade road, facing the canyon. Just real fast, and I'll provide additional information subsequently, but it's a 63-acre open space nature preserve. And we are, as the city manager indicated, granting an open space easement to the San Benito Land Trust. So it's a real neat opportunity for the county and the citizens of San Juan Bautista to gain what's going to amount to be a county park, free of charge, donated by this Isha organization. It's going to be open to the public 7 days a week. Of course, we have to work out issues of liability and security and things like that, but it's going to have hiking trails and interpretive signs and flora and fauna and a wildlife management plan and all of those things. As I indicated, the only thing that this yoga organization wants is a space to do yoga. So we have to figure out a way to create a space to do yoga. But again, that will not be on a ridgeline or a hilltop. It'll be on the hill, the side of the hill facing the canyon. And we will work with the neighbors, a lot of whom I've met with already substantially, like Mr. Dazzle is in the audience, and we're going to continue the dialogue and have open houses, and we'll welcome your comments at any time too as the project moves forward. But no application's been turned in yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's good. Okay, any other comments on that? Do you have any? No forms? Okay. Next item. 69 San Antonio Street, property cleanup and abatement.
No,
treatment.
C.
Strategy.
Oh, I missed. Oh, I'm sorry. Crossed off the wrong one. Strategies for implementation of the signed ordinance. After umpteen years, we finally have a signed ordinance, and it seems like the city council has approved it after there's 2 public hearings. Now, issue is, how do we get the word out? I guess that's staff, you want to talk about that?
Well, I've kind of identified a few criteria that you could meet with the San Juan Committee to encourage them to participate and as the principal and go-to answer people, meet with the individual merchants and the merchants committee, develop an informational pamphlet and circulate to all businesses, and distribute copies of the new sign ordinance to all businesses, and hold some public forum so that they're aware of the new regulations.
Commissioners, do I hear the public first?
Yes.
Okay, what we have here now is a complete revision of the sign code. We spent almost 5 years on this thing due to all the different things that happened to us in the process. We made every effort to reach the public through special meetings on Thursday mornings prior to the shops opening up, meeting with the San Juan Committee, talking to all the folks we could. And so now we have an ordinance, but there will still be people who said they hadn't heard about it. So now that the ordinance is there, it has to be promulgated. And so if anybody has any ideas that were not picked up by staff relating to how to get the word out, we're all ears to listen, because the fact that we had it adopted by the city council means we have to enforce it. So if you have any thoughts on that, that'd be a good time to give us your 2 cents. Mr. Ponce.
Another 2 cents.
That's good. But it's always good from you.
I got a lot of 2 cents.
You must have been here a long time.
Yeah, the San Juan downtown merchants have formed a group. They call them San Juan Merchants, and they meet once a month, roughly, and they've been meeting here at City Hall. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for the city or the commission to meet with them and give them an update of what's going on. We'll have them right here at City Hall.
Now, there was a San Juan Committee. Is this another organization?
Yes, the San Juan Merchants have a group.
How about what happened to the committee?
No, we're still with that. We're still working on what we do.
Oh, they're still, but they are 2
Yeah,
separate
two
groups.
separate
Okay.
committees. And we've supported them in what they're doing also. So we're working together, but they do meet here, and I think that would be a perfect opportunity for a member of the commission or the city staff to give them an update of what's going on.
Do you recall what days, times?
No, I don't. But Lois Long from, she has a shop down there at the plaza. She chairs that committee.
Okay, thank you.
You know, one that does anybody in the public would like to talk about this? Okay, we have that new newspaper, the Mission Village Voice, and the cutoff, I think, is next Tuesday for any articles or ads they want to be put in there.
No, it's not, it's
No,
later.
the 25th. Yeah.
Please.
Well, that was fast, yeah. But my thought was that since Ms. Caetano is very interested in the community and what's happening in it, this would be a good place
It's a great idea.
to have her interview staff and get all the principal things in there. And in that article, we can always ask people to comply or help us with the process for complying. This, again, another one was to help the business community by cutting down the details of getting permits, cutting down the fees that we thought were outrageous, and getting rid of signs that are detrimental to good business in the community. So, commissioners, how about some ideas from you?
I think it's a great idea to somehow incorporate this in the Mission Village Voice. And they're having an advisory board meeting this week, so I'll bring it up.
You take that care? Okay, we'll let you do that one officially.
And I like Richard's idea also of the meeting with the merchants here.
How we do that?
I'm not sure how we can put it in a nutshell.
2 commissioners can go to one of their meetings and talk about it, answer questions. 3 would be a quorum. We'd have to have a public notice and everything, and it's not our meeting, it's be their meeting. But we get 2 people go into that meeting, on their invitation and make that presentation. Again, reaching one-to-one, face-to-face.
All right, well, I'll contact Lois and find out when they'll meet next, and I'll email all of us, or maybe I'll ask Trish to do that. I don't know what's appropriate. If I just announce when they'll meet, that's not a violation of anything, Brown Act.
Of when,
When the San Juan merchants meet.
no.
No, she can do that, yeah. Anybody else have any ideas? Commissioners?
I suppose a huge sign is out of the question.
Only if it complies.
It has a permit.
Only if it's, wait a minute, would that be a freedom of
First Amendment.
First Amendment speech or something? Okay, any other thoughts? Pat? Nope. Staff?
I think we were talking about preparing a kind of an informational pamphlet that would go out to show them the process of how to get the application and get approved, and kind of something that'll help them go through the process. I think that was the thing. We talked about that at various times when we were developing it, where a person comes in and they have a nice pamphlet and information thing. They can say, this is what, I'm going to start a business, I've got to do this, but if I want to do signs, this is the procedure. You know.
I like that. So you got it in hand.
Yeah,
Everything you
So
need to
when they
know.
apply for their business permit.
yeah.
Okay. So these are all ideas that we can work with. But I like definitely meeting with the merchants. Okay.
Can I interject?
Yes.
Roger, Michelle's getting ready to put out the business license form for renewal. Might be time to put an insert in.
Yeah, that would probably be a good thing,
Yeah.
because she's sending out all the notices for the business license, and that would be an opportunity to mention the new sign ordinance, and the copies will be available for people to come in and take a look at, yeah.
Have there been any questions from the merchants? Have any of
Not
them
at
made
this time,
comments in
no.
regards to it at all, since it's been approved?
Okay. There being no others, move to the next item. Now it's D. 69 San Antonio Street, property cleanup and abatement, tree removal, outbuilding demolition, relocation of significant historical building, and proposed development. Staff?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the 1.3 acre parcel of land just recently sold. It has a number of structures on it and outbuildings, as well as a number of trees and debris. We've taken photos of the thing, and I've Xeroxed these and given you the opportunity to go through it. There are a lot of debris and trash there that has to be cleaned up, as well as trees, septic tanks, and outbuildings, animal containment sanctuaries and stuff.
Septic tanks.
Abandoned cars, you know.
Are
Yeah,
they
and
good
the
on-
house, the old house was on a septic tank.
Really? Still?
Yeah, still is, yeah, and it has to be removed,
Huh.
stuff like that. So, and the owner is getting ready to submit his application for a minor subdivision.
Does he want to do a preliminary informal
project?
presentation? Or?
He could, yeah, I could ask him
I
there.
mean,
yeah.
might be a benefit to him.
Yeah, he did tour the site with me, and we went in the house. The house is pretty run down, and it has been used to grow some illegal marijuana, you know. We found evidence of a lot of paraphernalia in there of growing plants and stuff, and all the windows have been boarded off and stuff.
Anything on the meth lab?
No, we didn't find any type of substance that way that would be hazardous in the med lab. It was like a lot of growing plants and stuff like that inside, fertilizer and stuff like that.
Gardening, home gardening.
We went through the building. It's pretty well deteriorated. The brick chimney has fallen away from the house. Interior-wise, a lot of substandard structures and rooms that have been modified and structurally jeopardized part of the structure itself. The front and side is a horizontal redwood siding. The back is vertical board and bat, you know. Foundation is a wood, redwood sleepers, no concrete. There was a concrete perimeter cast around it to prevent water from going underneath it. I think that's there. The outbuildings were chicken coops that were turned into living quarters, and it was pretty deplorable, the garage. It's got a lot of trash in it. And there was an orchard extending from the house heading towards the 156, and it hadn't been maintained or kept up for a number of years, and most of the trees are dying or dead.
There's some cyclone
But-
fencing on the roof.
Yes, right. Yeah. The underlying shakes had been overlaid with asphalt, and then they've deteriorated, you know, stuff like that. The slight slopes from 156 down to San Antone, you know, and it has a variable slope, and so most of the drainage coming off the property would head down towards the intersection of the San Antone with McCollum Street. You know. That's the closest storm drain.
Do I see 5 different electrical meters on the one house?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, how does that happen without anybody being suspicious?
That was
Doesn't
done,
PG,
that
is
was
it,
done in the 40s.
Really?
I think there was apartment
Mike Harrell did that,
Oh.
made apartments out of it.
apartments out of it. Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm, yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
My other question was, is if there was a grow in there, how did the water, I mean, the water must have been through the roof.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you can see in there the subfloor is pretty spongy. I had thought about almost falling through at certain spots.
This house is about as shape as the brewery was, or worse.
About the same category. Mhm, yeah.
what a shame.
Since this is going to be coming up on us, could you arrange for a tour? A field
Yes,
trip for
yeah.
us, so we can at least see
Yeah.
it when he comes in, we'll know what he's talking
Yeah.
about.
In front there, I took a picture of that, and there was rumors that this was a stagecoach stop for an outdoor kitchen. I asked Richard about it, if he knew anything about it. And, it looked like they was outside, and there was a grill, and they were using it as an outdoor kitchen. But I think Richard brought up an interesting point, that it's highly illogical that a stagecoach would come down the old El Camino Real and go up that hill to feed their passengers, and then be on its way to go over the Salinas Grade Road to Salinas. It's out of the way.
Stagecoach went down this way.
It's
not
down
that way.
there, right? Yeah, right. So I doubt very seriously if it really turned out to be there. I think it was just a patio cover out there where they could barbecue out in the front yard and probably enjoyed it.
Is there much of a backyard? Oh wait, there is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes.
There's all those
Exten-
outbuildings.
Extensive backyard. Mhm. That had some evidence of little retaining walls and stuff like that that's all been crumbled and deteriorated, and you know. So yeah, I could call Greg, and we could have a tour of that thing at any time. Mhm.
I have the 1981 historical inventory report, and I thought it was interesting that Mr. Hall probably constructed the building about 1861. It knew a succession of owners, and at one time, while the property of Daniel Harris, one of San Juan Bautista's early Jewish merchants, may have had a flour mill on the original 13-acre property. Special significance lies in the fact that the Boyd House and land represent one of the last small farmsteads still basically intact within the city limits of San Juan.
Just recently, I went down, and Joey Cousins, you know, he's doing some remodeling, and we went through that house, and that was built in 1906. And the siding,
Fourth?
yeah, on 4th Street, and that house has similar sidings that this house has. It's a lap redwood siding in the front and the 2 sides, and on the back it's redwood vertical boards with bat on it, you know, deteriorated it. So I would say that the vast majority of the siding was probably put on at the turn of the century, 1910, 1920, right in there.
That house was remodeled many times.
Yeah, right, remodeled, yeah.
Wow.
Then there on the front, and you'll see in the picture there, they put a deck out there, and then just put a ledger out there and some hangers and floor joists, and they didn't do a very attractive job.
It's in the 1981 picture.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Looked a little better then.
Probably a lot better shape.
Looked better then.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you get us a tour prior to him coming for an application,
Yeah.
and that way we get to see when he comes in, we'll visually see it.
I'll talk to him, and yeah, he's got the property surveyed and inventoried of all of the structures and trees and stuff like that. So, good. Okay.
Okay. Okay, what's on the agenda next? Okay, 3rd Street public nuisance.
This is strictly, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is strictly an information aspect of what I gave the city council at their last regular meeting, and it's been coming to our attention that the activities down there is creating a public nuisance and an atmosphere where it's affecting some of the local businesses and stuff like that. And so I brought it to the planning commission's, the city council's agenda, and I just wanted you to be up to date on it, where we're trying to encourage the owner of the building to use a little bit of restraints for their customers and say to respect our community and act a little bit more obedient and not create a nuisance. That's what it's all about.
Is there any access from the back to an open space?
Yes, there's a back area back there. It's full of bottles and
It
trash.
goes into that empty lot now that's burnt
Yeah,
right there.
Okay.
There's that walkway right there.
yeah.
That probably wouldn't solve the situation, huh, by having them just congregate in the back?
Well, I mean, it could be cleaned up. It's not as big as behind the Daisies, where John has developed that as a smoking area for his patrons. But it could be developed into something where they could go back there and smoke. Right now, they're smoking out in front on the sidewalk. It is a violation of the State Assembly Bill 13. You can't smoke within 20 feet of the entrance door of a public building.
So-
And so they...
Has the city sent her any letters at all?
I've talked to the owner 2 or 3
It's
times.
not in writing or anything
Yeah,
else?
nothing. Yeah, that's our next thing is to write the renewal of their business license, and this is where we'll be corresponding with her.
Can
That,
this,
that business has been established for almost 55 years without shutting down in San Juan.
Yeah, right, yeah. No. It's, we have no problem if the business is conducted properly where it doesn't create a public nuisance, but recently it has, and just recently I had stopped one of the patrons with a bullwhip out in the middle of the road, snapping the
Oh, my
thing,
gosh.
and that's the type of behavior and activity that we don't want to foster, and that was, during the day,
can we strongly encourage the owner to build something in the back or to allow patrons to?
I've even gone to a step further. I even asked the building owner, the McCandless, and they're willing to cooperate.
McCandless owns that?
See, if this is going to keep new businesses from coming in, and existing residents and tourists from coming downtown, then it's working contrary to everything we want. So if you need help in the commission, let us know. Because we put ourselves on the line to support businesses.
I think that's the nature of what I was trying to get across is we want to foster a better business atmosphere for the tourists. We are a tourist-oriented economy, and we want to foster that ability to attract people here and come and enjoy the city and spend money and eat in restaurants and stuff.
Enjoy
And
it.
if that activity impedes that, it's counterproductive to our overall objective, and so.
It seems like the
And we're
merchants.
we're not anti any type of business, and we're not any type of activity. We just want them to be responsible and respect.
You have the same problem in ice cream shop when they got so many people, they can't get them in there and they just pile up on the sidewalk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, not
yeah.
smoking.
But,
They're just spilling ice
the-
cream.
Well,
But-
the smoke I can see, but,
Yeah, but.
I mean, if you're gonna tell her
But
she can't
that,
smoke
there
within
is-
20 feet of that door, you got another door down 20 feet, so where are they gonna stop? They're gonna keep going down the road.
There's a difference in the ice cream shop. They're lined up to go in there, and as soon as they get their ice cream cone, and then off they go. Here, we've witnessed as they stay there 3 or 4 hours, all milling around. And I think that's where the loitering aspect gets into it.
Well, I've heard one resident that being in there when these motorcycles are revving up, all the exhaust gets sucked into that building. And if you were in a restaurant paying a lot of money for a good meal and you started choking on exhaust fumes, you'd be unhappy.
Yeah, we actually had quite a bit of comment at the neighborhood watch meeting about that very thing.
We want to just encourage people to act responsible.
And comply with the
That's the key.
city's ordinances. Okay, thank you for that report. Next one is update on Harvey Dodwell Project 404 the Alameda.
Yeah, the commission asked me to kind of just highlight the status. We appeared in front of the judge on this, and the judge had ordered some steps to be taken, but I just kind of highlighted the activity that the SSL law firm in San Francisco filed. They filed 6 causes of action against the Dadwell project. And the first cause of action is violate the CEQA, failure to consider the ordinance a project, and we don't understand that. Second cause of action is violated the CEQA, unlawful application of CEQA exemption. And third cause of action is violation of the CEQA, unlawful reliance on guideline 15183 and Public Resources Code 21801, subsection E. Fourth cause of action is violation of the CEQA, failure to complete an environmental impact report. And the fifth cause of the action is a violation of the California planning and zoning laws. And the sixth and final was the sixth cause of action is injunctive relief. Those are what the Dadwell attorneys, the city, and the SLL law firm are debating with the judge. The matter came before Judge Harry Tobias, and he gave the petitioners to file a brief by the end of May. The respondent, Mr. Dadwell, will file a brief by the court by the end of June. A reply of the brief shall be filed by the court by the end of July, and then the court shall set a hearing date in August for a hearing on the matter in the fall.
Wow.
That's kind of the direction. It has resulted in the delay of the project over 1.5 years now as it proceeds forward there.
And this costs the city money in terms of our lawyer
Yes,
consulting
yes.
with our lawyer.
It's cost
This is
both the
another
city
reason.
as well as the owner. It's cost us a tremendous amount of time and effort where we had to compile the record for the law firm in San Francisco, and it resulted in about 2,000 pages of documentation, and we had to pull it together, and we finally got it out to them.
This is the kind of word that gets out and makes people not want to come in and try
Yeah,
a
it's
business. It's a very negative thing.
negative thing.
I just hope they resolve it quickly. But I mean, if you had a new business coming in, you knew you had to go to the planning commission, would you risk it? Would you risk it?
Sends a bad precedent, yes.
Okay, thank you again for that report. The last one is the Strategic Planning Committee report. Commissioner Baderos is our normal official representative to that committee. Does anybody know anything about it? Might
Well,
wanna
John
say
Freeman's
something?
not here. I was hoping he'd be here. I can just report that each of the committees, the subcommittees, since our last meeting and the next meeting, are tasked with studying each of the matrices in the new general plan, comparing it to the old one, making sure that everything that we had is incorporated in the new one. And the new one has so many more details. It's a lot more developed. And so at our next meeting, we'll be studying that. We'll get back to you.
Planning is an organic topic. There's no one rule. If you look at the zoning ordinances, they generally were established after World War II, during and after, with the various national and state regulations. Well, housing of the type, the limited number of cars that existed, if you had one at all, mass transit that worked, 50 years later, times have changed, and that general plan and your city policies have to reflect what is current today, not what everybody used to do, because you can't do it anymore. I remember when environmental impact reports were 2 or 3 pages, and that got you through. Today, they're 500 pages for ours, and that's a small city. So, again, it's very important that even not just staff, not just the commission, but the folks who are affected by it, your kids, my kids, we need to be sure that that thing is up to date and is setting them up for an opportunity to have a great future in a nice town. So keep that in mind. Any ideas, just shoot them over here and we'll work with them. Okay, that's the end of our discussion items. Commissioners, anything you want for future agenda items?
I would like to know the status of the new planner. I know they held interviews, and I don't know if they've selected anybody yet, but I'd like an update at our next meeting.
Okay.
And I also, my son got married last weekend, and we rented a place through Airbnb in Los Olivos. And I know, in helping the Rose Group find accommodations here, I printed out a list. I made a list for them of accommodations in town. There are 3 Airbnb and 2 VRBOs in town. And I wonder if do we get any TOTs on those? Or what do we do about that? Do we do anything about it?
That's actually a big topic right now.
Yeah.
We don't get any TOTs from any of the B&B, no. Yeah.
So it might be something to talk about. I don't know if we want to go there.
That's a discussion item.
That's something that's below the radar, and we should look at that, yeah.
Well,
Because if everybody else has to pay TOT by the night,
Yeah, we did.
and
Yeah.
everybody who is similarly, everybody similarly situated should have to do the
Yeah.
same.
And TOT is transient occupancy tax. So hotels collect it.
Bed tax,
Yeah.
that extra 10-15% on your bill. Okay.
That's it for me.
Pat? Anything you like, Commissioner Gretasoff? You're pretty new, but you might have some ideas.
No, I was just looking for update on the Harb's lockup. I hadn't heard about that in a couple
Okay,
of
we'll
months.
put that down.
Yeah. Okay, we'll bring you up to speed on
Yep.
that. He had some sewer problems. He was all set to.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, when Pavex did the thing, they chopped through a sewer line of his and didn't say anything and sealed it up. And
Oh, boy.
we uncovered it, and we got a letter into Pavex to see if they'll help us out.
I have a question on the brewery project. We have all the conditions and 41 mitigation measures. I'd like to see which ones have been completed.
I have a file where I filled out various segments of
Yeah.
that, and I'll bring that and fill that in. That was for your benefit to say we've tracked everything, and as they achieve certain milestones, we sign it off. But
That's a good way to
a
do it.
lot of them still up in the air, and I've been pushing them very hard to complete the thing.
And I'd say certainly not continuing to phase 2 until he finishes all this.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I told him. He wanted to know if he could submit for the second building, and I says I wouldn't accept it until he substantially conforms to the first one.
Trust me, it doesn't do it around here.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Staff?
No?
Secretary? No? Okay, I'll ask for a motion for this adjournment.
like to thank everyone for coming. Is there anything you wanted to say? Can we, is it too
Oh.
late? Okay.
Last minute, everybody's cutting out, I'm sorry about that. Commissioners, Mr. Chair, I am...
Your name,
My name
please?
is Craig Clower. I am the owner of 69 San Antonio. I'm going to include my wife on that too. She's the owner. She may not be happy with me at this point.
Did she know what you were doing?
It's up for discussion still, or debate at our house, but I would like to get that tour set up with you folks as soon as possible because it's extremely disgusting. I'm a little embarrassed to own something like that at this point, and I want to get it cleaned up. There has been some illegal dumping the last week up there. We've since fenced it off, but it kind of is attracting that right now. So as soon as I can get you folks on tour and get you through there, I think the sooner the better.
Good.
I want to thank you. Don't look at it as a negative thing on your part. You're performing a public service, and I live in the neighborhood, and I want to say thank you. I saw your bad trees coming down today, and it sounds like you're on a good track.
We want to try. I want to get it done as soon as possible, at least to get it cleaned up, and then come back to our plan for the subdivision.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
How do I schedule it?
Well, you work with Roger.
Okay.
Again, one thing, if you just want to get some feedback on, if you got 2 or 3 different ideas, informally, with rather than bring a whole engineer and architects and attorneys, say, hey, look, I've got this sketch here. What do you think?
Okay.
If we don't like it, or we feel there's a problem with it, we can tell you. We're not voting on it. We're just commenting. But you can take that back to your engineer, your architect, and say, hey, this is what the city's looking for. And it doesn't cost you a cent to do this.
We've got a general idea, and it seemed to fall into the category that you folks were talking about earlier tonight. Different size lots from 7,000 square feet up to 11,000 square foot lots with different size houses, and try to get in that affordable range to everybody. And just a comment as far as the millennials, they want smaller houses with smaller yards. They don't want to do yard work. Okay, I'm not a big builder by any means. I build 3 or 4 houses a year, but the study is the big builders. That's what they're building for the new people. They're trying to get the 20 to 35-year-olds to purchase because they've been out of the market for a long time.
Right.
So that's what they're attracting them to is nice houses, small yards, because they are work oriented. So they don't have, with the time they do have, they don't want to spend it doing yard work, unfortunately.
You know, the project this size is following what the staff is talking about. When you come up with it, we can start talking about the new zoning districts that would accommodate what you want to do.
Great.
Yeah.
Was it you or your son who did the 2 on Second and?
That was me.
And also the
Yeah.
one on Third, huh? The
My
Third
son
in
is,
Monterey?
I did all
Okay.
3 of those. My
Okay.
son is a realtor. I'll see if maybe I can get him to come in and speak to you folks about
That would be
the
good.
real estate market.
I mean, I think it's important because, it's a lot of us can say something, and all of a sudden, are you a realtor? Are you an engineer? This and that. And all of a sudden, a realtor says, here's what's on the real market.
Right.
And again, the strength of that would support an action by the council to change an ordinance. The ordinance is there, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if a new idea comes up, and we show documentation that, hey, there's a market for this stuff, and we don't have anything available. That'd be a reason.
He's also a first-time council member
Yeah.
in Hollister, so he gets
Oh,
a
wow.
view from the other side of the
You got
podium
it.
too. So
I have to say, I've seen his posts on Facebook that he's providing a rundown of the meetings. I think that's a wonderful public service that he's doing.
I'll let him know. Thank you. Thank you. I'll work with Roger and try to get something set up.
Sounds good.
Thank you for your time.
Real
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you for coming in. Okay,
Can I just say something real quick?
sure.
I just wanted to say, I hope I can add to the synergy of the group, and that was kind of
We're
it.
counting on it.
Oh, boy.
We're counting on it.
Wasn't a
aboard.
solicitation, no.
Welcome aboard.
But,
I mean, you volunteered to accept it's a job. It's really, public service is not just a fly-by-night
Keep on
thing.
asking questions. Don't ever feel hesitant to ask questions.
Or comment.
Yeah.
Okay. We're looking for that motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion to adjourn. I was about
Is there a
to.
second?
second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? let's go. So I get my timing here.